This will be a very brief video going through denotation and connotation. Okay. Um, these terms are not too complicated for what they really mean. Denotation is just the definition of a word that you would actually find in the dictionary. So that really just means the actual definition of the word. It starts with a D also, so that should help you remember that it's a dictionary definition. All those start with D. And then connotation is the feeling of a word. So usually what we talk about is whether or not something has a positive connotation, like it sounds like a good thing, or a negative connotation, like it sounds like a bad thing. So if we look at the examples on this page, you'll see three different terms that are sometimes used to describe where somebody lives. Okay, so the most negative one here obviously would be a dump. Okay, saying like you live in that dump, that sounds incredibly negative. Whereas if you said you live in that house, like that sounds either positive or maybe a little bit neutral. And then home is usually even more positive than house because it sounds like it's like this nice, friendly, warm place that people live. Okay. Some are not going to be quite as clear cut. So something like cop doesn't sound offensive or anything. It would be neutral, or maybe even you could see it as slightly positive. It's not a negative term at the very least. I'd say it's neutral. But the term officer is more positive than the term cop because the term officer is showing respect toward the person. Okay, so this would be the more positive word out of the two. Even though neither of them have a negative connotation, one still has a better connotation than the other. The example below it is very similar. Chick is often used in a negative way. Calling somebody a chick is not very respectful. Calling somebody a woman, on the other hand, is either going to be a neutral term, just referring to somebody being a woman, or it might be even a positive term. A lot of times that indicates some kind of strength if you're referring to somebody as a woman, or some kind of maturity if you're referring to them as a woman. The terms down here are a little bit more clear cut, kind of like dump versus house. Nerdy is obviously the more negative term here, with a very similar meaning to the word smart, which would be the positive term. Okay. So the next slide just says to try this on your sheet. So there are several parts that you should do, so I'll go to that very quickly. You should do the entire front page. Okay, so here you are just looking at what is being asked of you. So the first 5, you're looking at what's more positive, the second 5, what's more negative, and here you're just responding to the question. And then the second part, you are trying to figure out based on all the clues that you get in a sentence for what people are trying to say, what actually fits. So like if we looked at number 1, the sooner we move out of this blank, said Jack, the happier I'll be. Obviously Jack doesn't like this place, so he would probably use the word dump. Okay, this cell phone is expensive or overpriced, but I don't mind paying extra because it has so many useful features. In this case, you want to focus on how it costs a lot, but you still like it. So you'd say it's expensive. Overpriced means that it would cost too much, like it's not worth its price. Okay, so please go through those problems and then continue the lecture when you're down to part 3. Okay, so if you're ready to move on to part 3, this is the last bit of information. So this is a very short slideshow, and this one has 2 slides there, the same once again. But I want you to recognize how simple it is to change your connotation and the actual tone of your message based on what you're actually trying to say or what your purpose is. So if I was really upset after I met with a realtor, I would never say this, but somebody who's very upset and wants to express that very clearly and show no respect for anyone might explain the situation like this and say, some chick showed me this dump of a place. I saw the neighbor farting around outside, so I went over to say, hey, he was some nerdy cop or something. I won't be moving in there. Okay, obviously this person does not like the place and is not really treating people very respectfully, using the term chick here, calling the neighbor a nerdy cop, saying he was farting around outside. So all of those things show quite a bit of disrespect. Okay, which depending on your purpose, you may be intending to do. But either way, this is a very disrespectful kind of tone. A lot of terms in here have a negative connotation like chick, dump, farting around. Saying hey is really casual, so it's a little more negative than what you'll see down here. Calling him nerdy, calling him a cop instead of an officer, that type of thing. The bottom one shows kind of the opposite, where if you were very impressed with the place, or at the very least you wanted to be respectful toward the people you're describing, you could say something more like this. It means the exact same thing, other than the actual connotation of all of it. A woman showed me this house yesterday. I saw the neighbor in the yard, so I went over to introduce myself. He seemed intelligent, and he is a police officer. It seemed like a nice place. Okay, so I changed chick to woman. I changed dump to house. I just took out the farting around outside part, saying that the neighbor was in the yard. Instead of saying hey, I went over to introduce myself. The person seemed intelligent. Instead of calling them nerdy, called him a police officer, or her a police officer. No, him, I use he. Called him a police officer instead of calling him a cop. So it's just much more respectful. Even if I wasn't in love with the place and I wasn't going to move in there, this is a more respectful way of talking about people. So this would be probably a better way of talking, unless you were really upset about something and just really wanted to get that across. Okay. So on your document, it says that you should think of someone you do not like. And then on a separate piece of paper, or on Google Doc, you should write a letter of recommendation for this person. So like for a job, okay? Please change names when you do this so that you're not showing me who you actually dislike. But anyway, I'm not going to be critical on how you format the letter, so I'm not too worried about how you write it, but it does need to have the content that I lay out down here. Everything you write should have a positive connotation, even though you do not like this person. That's the challenge. Okay, this does happen. People will ask coworkers or teachers or just people that they want a recommendation from. They'll ask them for letters of recommendation, and sometimes those people don't really have much that they want to say, at least not very nice things that they want to say about that person. But generally, you still need to find something positive to pass along. So everything that you're writing needs to have a positive connotation. Everything needs to be good. You can't be critical of this person in the letter that you're writing. So this is going to be hard because you're writing it for somebody that you dislike. But like I said, this is actually a pretty common task to encounter. So in the first paragraph, you should kindly introduce yourself and how you know the individual. That should be 3 to 5 sentences. And you need to, again, be very respectful of the person that you're writing to. In the second paragraph, this is where you're actually going to go through that person and why they should be hired for the job. So you're going to focus on positive things with 5 to 8 sentences. And then in paragraph 3, you should politely explain that you are available to answer questions and thank the reader for considering this person for the job. Okay. So throughout all of this, you need to be polite and respectful. And in this one, you really need to emphasize positive qualities of this person who you really don't like. Okay, so that's the goal, is to write with a positive connotation with this kind of difficult writing task. Okay, and that is it for today. If you have any questions, please ask me. Thank you.